the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war, humanity clings to life on the edge of extinction. The vast imperium of man, spanning millions of worlds, is held together not by hope or reason, but by fear, fanaticism, and sacrifice. At the heart of this vast empire lies the Emperor, a godlike being kept alive on the golden throne, his immortal body barely clinging to existence through the daily sacrifice of thousands of souls. This is the story of what it truly means to be sacrificed to the Emperor. A story of pain, loss, and grim duty in the endless struggle for humanity's survival. Riah was born on a dusty, forgotten hive world on the edge of the segmentum obscurus. From a young age, it was clear she was different. She could feel things, voices whispering in her mind, emotions from others washing over her like waves. The Inquisition called her a Psyker, a beacon of psychic power born with a terrible gift and an even more terrible curse. Psykers were feared and hated. They were hunted from birth, enslaved, or worse. For Riah, this meant being taken from her family in the dead of night by robed men who whispered prayers to the Emperor as they chained her in cold, metallic cells. "Fear not, child," one said, his voice hollow. "You will serve a higher purpose. The Emperor's light will cleanse your soul." But Riah knew better. She had seen what happened to those like her. She had heard the screams that echoed through the fortress where they were held, screams that never ended. To Terra, Riah was transported on a massive, grim ship, a massive vessel called the Sanctus Crucible, bound for Terra itself. The journey was long and torturous. The ship was filled with hundreds of Psykers, all trapped and broken in different ways. Each day, Riah prayed silently to the Emperor, not out of faith, but desperation. "If I must be sacrificed," she whispered, "let it be quick." But sacrifice in the Imperium was never quick. When the Sanctus Crucible docked at the massive spires of the Imperial Palace, Riah was herded with others into a cavernous chamber below the throne room. Here, the air was thick with incense and despair. Before her stood the Golden Throne, an ancient, towering contraption of brass, wires, and arcane technology. It was said to hold the Emperor alive, his failing body fused to the machine, endlessly battling the warp, the chaotic dimension of psychic horrors. The price for keeping the Emperor alive was staggering. Each day, 1,000 Psyker souls were fed into the throne. Their life force sustained the Emperor's psychic beacon, a shining light that kept humanity's worst enemies at bay. Riah's turn was near. As she was strapped into the sacrificial chamber, Riah's heart pounded. Around her, other Psykers screamed and wailed, their minds torn asunder by the psychic drain. The chamber's walls pulsed with unnatural energy, resonating with the warp's dark power. The tech priests overseeing the ritual chanted prayers, their mechanical voices cold and unfeeling. "By the will of the Emperor, your soul shall feed the light." Riah closed her eyes and thought of her home, her family, the life she never had. She steeled herself for the inevitable. A searing pain exploded in her mind as the Golden Throne ripped at her soul. Time became meaningless. Memories, hopes, and dreams burned away like dry leaves. She screamed silently in the psychic void, trapped between life and death. Around her, the psychic screams of thousands melded into a terrible symphony, echoing through the warp and back into reality. And then nothing. Riah's consciousness faded as her soul was consumed, feeding the Emperor's eternal vigil. Outside the chamber, the Imperium remained oblivious to the individual tragedies unfolding in the shadows. To them, the sacrifice was necessary, a sacred duty to preserve humanity from destruction. The Emperor's psychic light kept the Chaos Gods at bay. Without it, entire worlds would fall to corruption, monsters, and madness. But at what cost? Thousands of Psykers were destroyed daily, families torn apart, futures erased. Humanity was sacrificed, one soul at a time. Though Riah was gone, her sacrifice was not in vain. The Emperor's beacon blazed, protecting billions. The Imperium marched onward, a fragile, broken empire clinging to existence. Yet, in the silence of the sacrificial chamber, a whisper remained. A whisper of pain, of loss, but also of defiance. For every soul lost, humanity's flame flickered, but did not die. Epilogue. The moment humanity is sacrificed to the Emperor is a moment of terrible sorrow. A moment when an individual life is crushed beneath the weight of galactic survival. It is a story repeated countless times, yet forgotten by most. And yet, it is this sacrifice that keeps the Imperium standing. In the end, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and sacrifice is the price humanity pays to keep the light burning. In the sprawling hive city of Necromunda Prime, deep in the heart of the Imperium, amidst the choking smoke and clanging machinery, Riah was born. From her earliest days, it was clear she was not like other children. While others played and laughed, Riah's eyes seemed to hold a storm. She heard whispers no one else could hear, felt emotions that were not her own, and her dreams were filled with strange and terrifying visions. In the Imperium, such gifts were feared and misunderstood. They marked one as a Psyker, a psychic conduit born with a thread connected to the warp, the chaotic and malevolent dimension that existed alongside reality. Psykers were a double-edged sword, invaluable tools to the Imperium, yet dangerous beyond measure. Riah's parents, simple workers in the sprawling industrial complexes of the Hive, feared the authorities. They whispered prayers to the Emperor, begging for their daughter's safety. But the Inquisition's shadow soon loomed over their lives. One cold night, men in black robes, faces hidden beneath hoods, arrived at their door. Their words were stern but carried a twisted mercy. Riah was to be taken for training and service to the Emperor. Her parents had no choice. Inquisition's grip. Riah was ripped from the only home she had known. She was bound and shackled in the bowels of a massive inquisitorial fortress, surrounded by others like her. Psykers from across the galaxy, all destined for the same grim fate. The air was thick with despair, the walls lined with arcane symbols and the faint hum of ancient machinery. The Psykers were broken in body and spirit. Harsh training was imposed to suppress their powers, and brutal rituals were performed to control the ever-present danger of the warp's influence. She was visited by tech priests and Adeptus Astrotelepathica tutors who told her stories of duty and sacrifice, preaching loyalty to the Emperor. But Riah's heart was heavy with fear and confusion. She could hear the screams, late at night, when the fortress quieted, the cries of those who had failed to control the powers within, those who had been offered to the Emperor, to Terra. After months of cruel training, Riah was loaded onto a massive vessel, the Sanctus Crucible, bound for Terra, the homeworld of humanity and the seat of the Emperor's power. The ship was a floating coffin, filled with hundreds of Psykers in varying states of physical and mental torment. The journey was long and nightmarish. The Psykers suffered from psychic feedback, hallucinations, and despair. Many did not survive the trip. Riah clung to her sanity by focusing on one thought: survival no matter the cost. On board, whispers told of the Golden Throne, a colossal, ancient machine upon which the Emperor sat, fused to wires and life support systems that drained the souls of Psykers to keep him alive. The price was unimaginable. Terra was awe-inspiring and terrifying in equal measure. Towering spires stretched toward a storm-ravaged sky, and millions of souls moved like ants through colossal corridors lined with statues of the Emperor. Riah was herded along with others into a subterranean complex beneath the Imperial Palace. Here, the air was heavy with incense, sorrow, and the faint hum of the Golden Throne's machinery. The throne itself was an engineering marvel and a nightmare, a fusion of arcane technology, flesh, and machine, holding the broken body of the Emperor in eternal vigil. It radiated power but also decay. Chapter 5: The Sacrificial Chamber. Riah was strapped into a cold, metallic chamber connected to the throne. The tech priests began their chants, reciting prayers in binary and low Gothic, their faces impassive beneath rusted masks. As the machinery powered up, Riah felt a terrible tearing sensation in her soul. The warp's energy surged through her mind like wildfire, burning memories, hopes, and identity. Around her, the screams of other Psykers merged into a haunting chorus of agony and despair. She saw flashes, images of distant worlds falling to chaos, of the Emperor's golden light pushing back the darkness, of humanity's survival hanging by a thread. Chapter 6. Pain and Transcendence. The pain was unbearable, but amidst it, Riah felt something else, a strange clarity. Her consciousness expanded beyond her physical form, touching the Emperor's mind, joining the psychic beacon that shielded humanity. Her fear and pain transformed into purpose. Though her body would perish, her essence would live on, fueling the light that kept the galaxy from descending into chaos. Yet the price was stark, the destruction of self, the sacrifice of all she was. Chapter 7. The Aftermath. The ritual ended. Riah's body lay still, a husk drained of life, but her soul had fed the Emperor's vigil for another day. Outside, the galaxy marched onward, oblivious to the individual suffering that sustained it. The Imperium continued its eternal war, vast armies battling Xenos, heretics, and demons, protected by the psychic light of the Golden Throne. But in the silence of the sacrificial chamber, a whisper remained, the silent testament of those who gave everything so humanity might endure. Chapter 8. Reflection. What does it mean to be sacrificed to the Emperor? To be reduced to nothing more than fuel for a godlike machine, a cog in an endless war? It means loss beyond words. It means a sacrifice so profound, it is forgotten by history but essential to the survival of mankind. It means the moment humanity is truly sacrificed, individual souls giving way to a greater, darker cause in the name of survival. Chapter 9. The cycle continues. Though Riah's soul had vanished into the psychic blaze of the Emperor's beacon, echoes of her agony lingered. Deep within the ancient machinery of the Golden Throne, the warp screamed with the voices of the sacrificed. A Mugos biologist named Varnak, stationed within the sanctum for 32 years, had begun hearing those whispers during his midnight maintenance cycles. "Help me, please. I was only 16. They came in thousands, fragments of thoughts, fears, memories. Not demons, just ghosts of humans, obliterated by holy purpose." Varnak recorded them, not out of heresy, but because he believed even in death their stories mattered. But in the Imperium, such thoughts were dangerous. He once told a junior acolyte, "You know what it sounds like, boy? It sounds like we've turned the Emperor into a god who dines on the dreams of children." A week later, the acolyte disappeared. Varnak never spoke of it again. Procession of the Doomed. Every dawn, a new batch of Psykers arrived. Some were barely teenagers, some broken veterans, others nobility who'd hidden their powers for years. There was no discrimination, only usefulness. They marched through the halls of offering, a long, dimly lit corridor filled with statues of saints and previous high lords. The irony? Each step forward brought them closer to sainthood through annihilation. One of them, a boy named Tinus, asked his guard, "Will it hurt?" The guard, a grizzled veteran, paused, then quietly said, "Yes, but you won't be alone. We all burn together in the Emperor's light." Tinus didn't cry. He walked the rest of the way silently. Hours later, his soul was torn apart. Machine gods bargain. While the Imperium's priests claimed the Emperor was a god sustained by devotion, the tech priests of Mars knew the truth was far more mechanical. The Golden Throne wasn't just a seat, it was a prison. A life support system built with technology so ancient, no one truly understood it anymore. Some said it had been designed for a different purpose, interstellar travel across the webway, but had been twisted into its current state out of desperation during the Horus Heresy. Mugos Harlexia, a red-robed priest of the Adeptus Mechanicus, explained during one of the monthly rites, "The machine god requires continuity, function, power. That power is drawn from life, ordered and delivered through the neural lattice. Chaos is entropy. This is logic. Sacrifice is math." She spoke as if it were science. But the screams from the chamber always told a different story. Light and its darkness. Across the galaxy, humanity celebrated the Emperor's guiding light, the Astronomican, the psychic beacon that allowed ships to navigate the warp safely. Few knew what powered it. Fewer cared. On frontier worlds, the Astronomican was a myth. On shrine worlds, it was holy. On Forge worlds, it was data. But for those within the Imperial Palace, it was a screaming furnace of souls. One navigator, Althena Vey, visited Terra once, a rare privilege. She had relied on the Astronomican her whole life, but when she heard the truth, she wept. "I have traveled across 100 systems," she said, "and I never knew my path was lit by so many dead." Her tears were not for guilt, but helplessness. What other choice was there? The Imperium ran on blood, shadows, yet not all hope was dead. In the depths of the Imperial Palace, a small, secretive sect known as the Ordo Lux Veritas had begun collecting the names of the sacrificed. They believed memory was a form of resistance. They wrote the names, as many as they could find, into massive scrolls that stretched from floor to ceiling. They recited them during midnight vigils, beneath the feet of saints who never knew their names. One archivist, Sister Malexa, whispered, "They were people. They laughed. They feared. They hoped. We owe them more than silence." The Ordo was not anti-Imperium. They were not heretics, but they remembered. Moment. And so we return to that question. What is the moment humanity is sacrificed to the Emperor? It is not a single second, not a flicker of light when a soul fades. It is a daily ritual, a never-ending procession, a constant, quiet scream beneath the noise of war, glory, and faith. It is every Psyker whose name will never be known. It is every child who looked up at the stars, only to be dragged beneath them. It is every soul crushed to keep a God-King breathing. It is not glorious. It is not noble, but it is what keeps the Imperium alive. Final reflection. In the grim darkness of the far future, the Emperor is not just a symbol of unity. He is the price of it. His continued existence demands sacrifice on a scale no species has ever paid. He burns with light eternal, a light fed by the quiet death of his people. And as long as that light burns, the Imperium survives. But every flicker costs a soul. Every moment, humanity is sacrificed to the Emperor. What happens to a soul after it is sacrificed? The Ecclesiarchy teaches that the faithful are united with the Emperor's spirit, that their essence becomes one with his divine will. But the truth, as whispered in the halls of astropaths and the minds of broken psychers, is far more complicated. In the warp, that swirling, maddening realm of emotion and chaos, echoes remain. Shadows of those sacrificed flicker like dying stars. Their thoughts, their pain, their last desperate prayers continue to swirl just beyond the reach of reality. Some astropaths, attuned to those frequencies, have begun to hear them. One such soul, astropath Lemron's soul, broke during communion. "They're still screaming," he muttered, clutching his skull. "They're still burning. They never stop burning." The Inquisition came for him within hours, not because he lied, but because he told the truth. There are whispers, dangerous whispers, that the Emperor feels every sacrifice. Trapped on the Golden Throne for over 10,000 years, his mortal body long decayed, his mind still flickers in and out of the warp. A god machine, they call him, but what if he is more man than they admit? Some say he screams beneath the surface, a silent god who never asked for this throne, who never wished to consume the lives of his people to continue. Others claim it is mercy that he remains silent, for if he awoke fully, the galaxy itself might tear apart. A forbidden psalm from an unknown scribe reads, "He sees them, every child, every soul. He remembers every name, and it breaks him, but he cannot stop." But mercy has no place in the Imperium. On a forgotten agri-world named Valaris Minor, a mother named Harma lit a candle every night for her daughter, taken by the black ships at age 11. A Psyker, a miracle and a curse. For 15 years, Harma waited. She had written letters, not to receive a reply, but to ensure her daughter's memory survived somewhere. "Dear Miran, I hope you are well. The wind is strong today. The orchard is blooming. I remember how you used to love the smell of the plum trees." What she didn't know, what she could never know, was that Miran's soul had already been fed into the throne. Her body reduced to dust, but her memory, it lived on in a mother's heart. That, too, is part of the sacrifice. In the bowels of the underhives, amidst rusted iron and toxic air, a heretical cult began to grow, not of chaos, not of rebellion, but of remembrance. They called themselves the Flame Keepers. Their belief was simple: if the Emperor must consume us to live, then let us choose to die with dignity. Let us be remembered. Let us burn as stars, not shadows. They told stories of the sacrificed, held funerals for the forgotten, sang songs for nameless Psykers. Of course, the Inquisition branded them traitors. But before they were executed, their final cry was recorded and spread across data scrolls in secret. He watches, he mourns, and he is trapped as we are. We do not blame him, but we will not let the sacrifice be silent anymore. In the Schola Progenium, children are raised to become servants of the Imperium, commissars, inquisitors, and loyalists of all kinds. Among them are orphans whose parents were sacrificed to the throne. One such child, young Kalen, asked his tutor, "If my mother gave her life for the Emperor, why can't I remember her face?" The tutor was silent. For once, the books offered no answer. Later that night, Kalen snuck into the archives and found a sealed file. Psyker ID V774 Delta. Subject: Luma Kalen, sacrificed. M42.117. He read every word, every recorded test, every pain she endured, and he wept. But he also vowed that if he ever rose high enough in the ranks, he would build a wall of names in the center of Terra. Not for glory, not for faith, but for memory, because sometimes, even in the darkest of empires, remembrance is rebellion. Word count estimate, cumulative 4,700, 4,900 words. Would you like me to continue with a final chapter, chapter 21, as a closing epilogue? A powerful cinematic conclusion with full emotional weight and visual grandeur? Let me know. I can deliver that final piece in the next message. The chamber was vast, wider than a hive, taller than a cathedral, colder than death itself. It was the Sanctum Astralis, deep within the core of the Imperial Palace on Holy Terra. Above it loomed the Golden Throne, humming with ancient, unknowable power, a machine older than memory, fed by pain, devotion, and silence. A single figure stood at the edge of the sacrifice vault. Archmagos Telian Vyrr, a senior tech priest of Mars, surrounded by servo skulls, surveillance drones, and data scrolls. But in this moment, he was alone. He stared into the emptiness, listening to the rhythmic hum of the psychic conduits. They pulsed like veins, like arteries, as if the entire Imperium itself had a heart, and it beat with the blood of those offered to the throne. Telian slowly removed his rebreather. His human face, rare among the Mechanicus, was aged, pale, and drawn. His voice cracked when he spoke aloud, though no one was there to hear him. Over 10,000 years, trillions of souls, all for one man. He stepped forward, closer to the glass barrier that separated the living from the sacrificed. Beyond it, rows of Psykers were being moved into place. Bound in steel, dosed with suppressants, blindfolded, silenced. The youngest among them couldn't have been more than 15. And still, the Emperor does not speak. But then something happened. A ripple, a soundless tremor through the air. The psychic fields twisted, not in violence, but like a sigh. A deep, eternal exhale. Telian's eyes widened. For a brief, impossible second, he heard something. Not a word, not a voice, but a memory, a feeling. 1,000 thoughts flickered into his mind. Not his own. Children, mothers, lost brothers, burning stars, tears, sacrifice, purpose. It was them, the sacrificed. Not gone, not completely. They lingered, not as ghosts, but as sparks of meaning. Threads woven into the tapestry of the Imperium's survival. And then, at the center of it all, a golden light. Not warm, not cold, but grieving. "You remember them," Telian whispered. He collapsed to his knees, tears flooding his face. A tech priest weeping before the machine god he had served his entire life. The Astronomican blazed overhead, shining through the void like a lighthouse of flame, guiding lost ships through madness and storm. But now Telian understood. It wasn't just the Emperor who kept it burning. It was all of them, every nameless soul, every forgotten child, every tear, every plea, every cry. The light was theirs, and for the first time in 10,000 years he felt it was worth it. Epilogue. Their names shall not be lost. On the 10th level of Terra's central archive sector, a new wall was being built. It bore no gold, no sigils, no propaganda, just names, each etched with care. Psyker designations replaced by real names, names recovered from data logs, prayer slips, family records. Riah, Miran, Tinas, Luma, Kalen's mother, thousands more. The wall stood in silence. Pilgrims passed by. Adepts stopped to read. A sister of battle knelt and whispered a prayer not of glory, but of gratitude. Above the wall, carved in high Gothic, were words burned into the stone. In their sacrifice we endure. In their light we navigate the stars. They are not forgotten. And far above them all, beyond the storm shield of Terra, amidst the screaming tides of the warp, the light of the Astronomican pulsed, brighter than ever.